5 years ago, and then that was while I was still working full time. And while I was working full time, I actually wrote the first two novels because they're a sequel. So I wrote that while I was still working full time, and then about 3.5 years ago, I left work. And yeah, so this is what I'm doing full time now. And yeah, but that was obviously quite a late start, I think, but it doesn't matter. Things happen in their time, and I guess this was my time to start. So yeah, I did a bit of, I've always been interested in reading and writing. So I did a bit of like a few opinion pieces and a few short stories that didn't really go anywhere. This was probably in my mid to late 20s. And then, that sort of fizzled out as well, but properly about 5 years ago.
Okay, now, listen, better late than never. At least you start.
Exactly.
You've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And how have your novels been received?
Very well. They've been received very well. I've actually been blessed because, when I started writing in my first novel, I actually let a couple of friends read it, almost like beta readers. And one or two said, are you going to be writing under your own name? Aren't you going to use a pseudonym? And I said, no, I can't possibly do that. Fortunately, well, when you're a certain age, you don't worry about things like that, about what people might say and the controversy. And also, I'm very passionate about my work. I would hate for it not to be known as my work. So I'm very passionate about my work. Generally, the books have been very well received. The first novel, Mirror Cracked, actually won the Minara Aziz Hassan Award for debut fiction in 2017.
That's fantastic.
Well, the prize was awarded in 2018. Yeah, that was great. And Fragrance of Forgiveness as well, the sequel to it. And then in between was the poetry and the short stories. And yeah, I've had quite interesting feedback on the short stories as well. And, originally I didn't think I'd write poetry. I didn't think I'd write short stories. I thought I'm only going to write novels. But yeah, it's good to write in different styles and genres. It gives you, it expands your writing brain a bit. And it's much as there's probably some talent, it's a skill that you need to keep working at. So trying different things, and different styles of writing, it just helps you to get better at it, I think.
Yeah, you've got to find your little niche and what you really enjoy doing and what you feel like you're really good at, I suppose. Where do you feel your joy lies most, in the novel writing or in the poetry, or a bit of both?
Probably the novel writing. Look, the novel writing is probably the most serious. I say that with a little bit of trepidation, because all of the writing is serious. All of the themes and the different sub themes that run through are things that are close to my heart. They're all passions of mine, so they would be there. But I would take the longest. I would take the longest and work the hardest at a novel, obviously because it's longest, but also just in terms of getting it right. Invariably, the first two novels probably were 10 versions down. This new novel that I'm going to be that is in production at the moment, it's called The Cursed Touch. That was probably 7 versions in with an editor. So I really work hard at that. And yes, and it gives me a chance, because I really like to, much as I say, my plots are very interesting, and I think they're very interesting, and they keep a person wanting to know what's going on, so people find it difficult to put the book down. Much as that is the case, my characters are also very strong. I work a lot on my characters. I believe that they're real. I love all of them. So that doesn't just happen or come easily. You've got to make sure it's consistent throughout. You got to make sure each character has their own personality and own voice. So yeah, I probably enjoy the novel writing the most. Having said that, though, I've just started on my 5th novel, and it's taxing me because it's slightly different to my other novels. My other novels are probably could be classified as contemporary women's fiction. So more the norm, or more what is expected, or what I've read. So maybe that's why it's come easier to me. My writing is quite serious. It's not chick lit or anything. Yeah, so this new novel is also fiction, but it's a little bit more spiritual without being religious.
Did you come up under any flack from your community about writing or about writing the
Actually,
topic?
no, I must say, like I said, people thought maybe I would come up, come under flag, but I didn't really. Maybe it's because my writing is not so well known yet. I don't know. Although, I mean, I've actually been lucky. I've been interviewed by most of the Islamic radio stations and also been on ITV, which is Islamic television. They're on DSTV. So, yeah, I haven't had much flack. The truth of the matter is, these things are happening in all communities, not only Muslim communities. There are controversial things. There are things that, in a conservative community or expected to be a conservative community like the Muslim community, we don't often talk about this. Having said that, though, because of the challenges that we're facing, I mean, especially the youth, but not only the youth, I mean, it's rife, the kinds of things that are, the social ills that are happening in society. And I don't want to call them social ills. It's probably just a growth and a development of the way things are going to happen. So I'm not labeling them so much so, but maybe what people would expect to be, them to be called. So yeah, no, I haven't had much luck. I've been very, very lucky. In fact, like I said, I've most of my support has come from the Muslim community, because yeah, I write what I know, as you should, and that's primarily a Muslim community, Muslim setting.
Yeah, there's a Jewish writer. Her name escapes me this very minute, and her books also they ruffled feathers in the Jewish community because she wrote about abuse and what's the word, and incest, and those are subjects that people don't talk about. They don't.
Those things are completely swept under the carpet.
Well, it does happen. I mean, there are shelters for religious Jewish women, and nobody talks about it. It's like an open secret, So definitely, there are topics that need dealing with, and people aren't prepared to recognize that they are.
Yeah. And I think for whatever reason, good or bad, I think we've had a lot of instances of drug taking in the Muslim community, and that is something that no longer can be hidden. It used to be where if it happened in the family, people would cover it up and nobody would talk about it, and oh, he's got a liver problem and she's got a kidney problem and they're in hospital or whatever. But now I don't think any family can say they're completely untouched by this. Even if it's not directly, somebody knows somebody who's involved in this, and sometimes it's hectic. So already those conversations have started, and the topics that I'm talking about, again, sometimes it's abuse, a lot of the times it's abuse. I mean, generally I don't like to say I write about abuse. I like to say I write about women's empowerment, and then also different sexual orientation. It's just because we don't talk about it doesn't mean these things don't happen. And I feel it's very important, especially when if a young man or a young woman is questioning these kinds of things, they have to be able to feel safe to talk about this within their family context. And the only way they can start feeling that way is if we are freer to receive these conversations, we are freer to actually start these conversations. So yeah, it is difficult. I mean, I know when my mom read the book, she was like, wow, I had one of my dad's cousins tell me, was like, whoa, Rashi, you are really brave to write about this kind of thing. But yeah, generally I've had positive feedback, and most people love the books. Most people, and I've actually had a few women come to me and say, this could have been my story. This actually happened to me. So yeah.
What happened to a friend of mine?
Not like it's fiction at all.
No, it happened to a friend of mine. She married a guy that she was seeing at school, and 5 years later, there's a problem, So yeah, absolutely. So, and I think particularly in Islam and Jewish communities, I think people they have a hard enough time coming out of the closet or dealing with abuse in these situations. And then you add religious to it as well, and then you just compounded the issue completely and made it even harder. Like in a Jewish community, they're really devout, will tear their clothes, and that's the end of you. You're no longer part of the family. They don't see you anymore. You're like a ghost. Yes. Nobody notices you there. So very difficult, and but definitely something that needs dealing with. What do you write about in your poetry?
So my poetry is probably more personal. I started writing poetry because I did an online writing course, and one of the practices was to write poetry because, you know, poetry has a little bit more freedom. It allows you a little more freedom. It also forces you to write succinctly. So I actually started writing poetry as an exercise. I didn't think I was actually going to produce the book, but you know how things turn out. The poetry came out even before the novels. It was ready even before the novels. So the poetry is quite personal. Again, it will be the themes that I'm dealing with and talking about, and also probably a little bit about my own writing journey and my own personal life journey, because it is very personal. And I think I was writing the poetry at the time when I had just started writing seriously. And yeah, and if you read my writing, you'll notice, you'll immediately be struck by the fact that it's very, very honest. I'm a very authentic writer, even though I'm writing fiction. So yeah, after I wrote the poetry and I published it, I was like, wow, did you really actually put that out there? So I reveal quite a bit of myself in the poetry. And I think people will, if you read my poetry, you'll probably get an idea of the kind of writing or the kind of writer I am.
Raashida, what's your writing process? Like for the novels, do you plot it or do you wait for it to happen?
So the first two novels, I didn't plot. But since then I've learned. And yes, I do plot a novel, even if it's a very loose plot. But I have an idea of the characters, and I do have an idea of where the story is going to go, and invariably how it's going to end. So I have an idea of how that's going to happen. Having said that, though, sometimes the characters are very stubborn. They want to do their own thing. They are very, very independent and very, very strong-willed. So often they'll take the plot along a different path. But I would say there's probably in my head about anything between 10 and 30 scenes or things that happen to move the story along. I try to make sure that my stories are never boring. So there's a lot of action, and it keeps moving along. So I have an idea of that. I have an idea of where it's going to go. Maybe I haven't worked out all the finer details, but as I write, that comes along. And yeah, sometimes it changes. Sometimes it has to change. But yes, generally, I have an idea of where the story is going to go.
What I appreciated in your books is there's no like long rambling descriptions about the rolling countryside and the clouds rolling in, because I generally skip over that. I want to get to where the action is, where people are talking. I prefer to avoid, it was a cloudy day and the rain was falling and, the windows were fogged up, so we couldn't really see out of the grey rooms and the grey carpet. I can live without that. I want the it's happening.
Well, having said that, I do want to make sure that I bring settings alive. I do want to make sure that I take my readers to where it's happening. But yeah, I don't want to overdo it. So if ever you come across me overdoing it, please feel free to tell me.
Yeah,
because I think
Can you hear your characters talking in your head? Do they have their little conversations? Do they talk to you?
Yes, my characters talk to me. They talk to each other. And yeah, I feel for my characters. I mean, there are times when I'm writing my books or I'm editing my books and I'm crying because, yeah, unfortunately, they always go through a lot of difficulties or challenges. And yeah, but, I like to write about strong female characters. That's really a passion of mine. And yeah, so invariably they have to go through challenging stuff, because how else do you know your strength? How else do you know that you have resources within you to be able to reach in and deal with things? So invariably, yeah, I've sometimes I'm crying, like I said, while I'm reading or editing or writing. So.
Are you a different person when you're writing? I mean, how does your family cope with you?
Oh, no, not really, hey. I'm generally a basket case, so they're quite used to it. So it's not nothing new there. No, I'm not generally. I'm not very. I don't get anal or anything about it when I'm writing. The only time maybe is if I'm frustrated in terms of when the story is not moving the way I want it to move, or in terms of pace. Instead of writing, 600 or 500, 600 words a day, I'm only writing 100 or 200 because it's just not getting there. So maybe I'm a bit irritable when that happens. But no, otherwise, generally, no. I'm not a different person when I'm writing. It's amazing how I'd like to say that when I'm writing a book and I'm being more focused, so I'm writing a good few hours a day, and that's what happens when I'm writing. I write for a few hours in the morning and then a few hours in the evening as well. And I try and set a target in terms of what number of words, because otherwise, as writers, we are great procrastinators. So I try and set a target, and I try and get there. But I don't know where I was going with this. What was the question? Oh, my process. Yes. So, and then when I'm editing, it's different. It's a bit more relaxed. And not to say that the editing process is not as intensive. My editing process is really, really intensive. So, but when I'm editing, it's not like I don't feel the pressure of the number of words. I might say, okay, editing 3 chapters or 4 chapters at a time. And then, and so I'm a bit more relaxed. But yeah, I mean, if this is what I'm going to do. I can't really allow it to change myself too much.
We went to a Jeffrey Archer talk at Monty once, and he turned around and he said every day he sits down and he writes 5,000 words. He said it doesn't matter if he throws them out. I know, like I don't know if he starts particularly early in the morning, but he said without fail, sit down at the computer or the typewriter or whatever he writes on. I didn't particularly like him, I have to tell you. He's not particularly, but
your cup of tea.
No, he didn't sit right with me, and he was quite rude in the audience, and he was quite rude about the Indian people, and
really? Well,
you know what happens is because his books are published, and the very next day they get on a plane and they're in India the next day, and they were like he was like all rude about the fact, and it's just
and I don't blame him for that.
Yeah, you know what, he's got enough books. It's not like the end of the world. Somebody rips your books off after 30 or 40 books. Doesn't make a difference if somebody's ripping your books off. It's a compliment of anything. It's not like he can afford, he needs the money at this point. But I just found his whole attitude, it sucked a bit, quite frankly.
Okay.
So, would you like to read us a couple of your poems, please? Maybe you've got a book nearby as well.
Yes. Yes, it's very close. I can get you my book. It's not far.
Yeah, so what I'd love you to do is read a bit of either the first or the second book, whatever you fancy, and then a couple of poems. And if anybody would like to ask, there's something in the question box here. Okay, then Kim asked, I see that you host workshops. Tell us about that part of your life as well.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, so I do host writing workshops. I haven't been brave enough to do them on Zoom in lockdown, I must confess, but I do host writing workshops, both prose writing and poetry writing. Not necessarily for people who want to write. I mean, my poetry writing, I call the workshop Finding Your Inner Self, because the idea, especially with poetry, I feel you are really reaching and understanding yourself better, as well as revealing yourself. So the poetry writing is not just purely poetry. It's also about, connecting with yourself and through writing and through words. And the writing workshops, I mean, so far they've been very successful. I've run them at schools. So they're specifically for, in preteens and teenagers. And if there's like a writing group at a school, or sometimes if a school is interested, then I would come through and run the writing workshops. I mean, unfortunately, it has slowed down, of course, in COVID, in lockdown, and I should have been a bit braver and taken over this technology phobia of mine that I have, and I should have just maybe do it. It's not too late. Maybe I can still do 1 or 2 writing workshops. I just find that there's a lot of stuff happening. But yeah, I haven't really seen writing workshops. Maybe that's something I'll consider doing. Thank you for the question, Kim. At least it's got me thinking I should do this.
I think doing stuff via the internet now and online is probably the way to go, quite frankly, because for a lot of people, if you want to start at 8 in the morning, they've got to be on the road by 6, depending on where they're coming from or whatever. So at least if you are starting to do things online, just from one aspect, there's no transportation cost. You don't have to feed them.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about security for cars. You don't have to worry about people not arriving on time. They're there. 8 o'clock the meeting starts, the learning starts. What is happening though, I think, is that people are getting screen fatigue. So because everything is online,
there's a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah, they've had enough. Yeah, and you spend all day looking at your laptop or your computer. You kind of don't want to be looking at it late into the evening as well. What I'm finding for myself is finding a happy medium time for everybody. You know, we switched to a later slot to allow people to come home from work now. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Maybe we need to do morning and evening, maybe morning and afternoon. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it pans out. Kim says it's going to be a long time until we see things happening in a way they did this time last year. You know what, Kim,
yes,
quite frankly,
true.
I don't want things to happen the way they did this time last year. I think it's nice to be off the hamster wheel, quite frankly. You know, just a little bit, not in terms of earning a living, because one's struggling to earn a living right now. But I think the pace that we work at and the pace that we live at is too frenetic and too hectic. And
it's too hectic anyway.
Need to slow down a little bit. Slow down and smell the roses. Has COVID affected the way you write or affected you writing? A lot of people can't read during this time. How did you feel about
I've read a lot more than I've written, I must confess, because that's my go-to. You know, whenever I'm feeling like writer's block, and like I told you, the new novel that I've just started is challenging me. So whenever I get frustrated, then I'm reading. So I've read quite a bit, and I'm happy to say that, you know, I've caught up on my to read stack quite a bit. It probably has affected my writing. I probably haven't been as productive. I can't explain why, because I mean, I don't normally have a job anyway. I'm at home. But I think also I was working on a few different things as lockdown started, as it just happened. I was writing some scripts for Radio Lotus. I don't know if you know, Lotus FM is
I don't listen to it, but I do know it. Yeah.
And they serialized Mirror Crack, my first novel. So they do radio dramas, and I was quite amazed at how well it was done. It was done quite well. So they serialized Mirror Cracked, and then just before lockdown actually happened, they said they were interested in Fragrance of Forgiveness. So I was busy writing the episodes for that. So it was a little bit of different writing. You know, writing a radio script is quite challenging. I mean, especially, can you imagine my novels? My novels are all this deep feeling, all this hectic stuff that's happening, and then you want to keep it away from everybody else. So you don't have the opportunity of thought to express what's happening in somebody's head, and that person is not talking about it because he or she's keeping it a secret. So with just a few sound effects and dialogue to try and get the story across, it was quite challenging. But I mean, I was delighted at how the radio drama turned out. I mean, the actors were really good. They have professional actors coming and doing it, and you know, doing all the proper sound effects and everything. I went down to Durban and I watched the recording of the first 5 episodes. So it was great. It was very exciting. So that, and then at the beginning of lockdown, I was doing that, and that went pretty well. I was doing the sequel, Fragrance of Forgiveness, the 20 episodes for that. Unfortunately, we don't know now when it's going to, you know, actually be produced and aired. So I've just got to, you know, wait for that. And then in lockdown, I've also written 1 or 2 blogs, which you know, I should be doing more of, because I know it gets traffic into the website. So in lockdown, I've managed to write 1 or 2 blogs. I mean, but also there's also so much of the same writing in lockdown. Everybody's talking about how this has affected them. So I didn't write too much about that either. But yeah, I'm now on my 5th novel. Touch wood, it happens. It's been a bit of stop and start, but like I said, whenever that has happened, I reach for the book that's nearest. And in fact, I had a friend pop in, and we swapped books, because I was done with whatever I had to read, and she brought me 2, and I lent her 3. So at least for a while there is something to read.
That's a bit of a challenge. Well, I'm glad bookshops are open now, so people can actually access books and know, fresh stock. My to be read pile next to my bed is huge. It just keeps growing.
I'm sure.
I just don't. I mean, I promise people that I'll get to their book, and I don't get there. But you know, it's. And then I have to read really fast when I do get there. So so everything else has to kind
of. That's probably why you can't handle all the fluffy bits, and all the endless descriptions.
Yeah,
you just want to get over it. Just keep it now, because you've got so much more to read.
My whole bedside table, and it's a chest of drawers, my bedside table. So you must know it's actually got, there must be 15 or 20 books just waiting to be read. And we were out shopping the other day, my mother and I. We went to charity shop, and of course, I want to read that and I want to read that. So on top of the stuff that I need to read, authors, I want to read the stuff that the other stuff. So it's mind-boggling. There's not enough hours in the day, there really aren't. in spite of the fact that we did nothing for the first couple of weeks of lockdown. Raashida, read to us, please.
Okay, so this is here, so I'm going to read from this first, and then we'll see. I'll grab my novels as well. They're just in my little study behind me. So it's always difficult to choose what I'm going to read, but I think I'm going to read Happy Birthday, Rashi, the title poem. So as I was saying, I wrote the poetry at the time when I just seriously started writing, and I was also going through a lot of introspection. And I'd reached that point in my life where I was now celebrating being able to live in the moment and, not knocking myself, I started too late or whatever. So I just sort of went with the flow. And Happy Birthday, Rashi is about celebrating the self and celebrating living in the moment. So here goes. Happy birthday, Rashi. I will give myself a gift so special and precious on this, the celebration of my birth. I will love myself enough to present a prize long awaited, as rare and coveted as the chalice of a king. I will stand high in my heels, proud in my knowing, assured in your presence, imbibing you, treasuring the view as rare as black lemonade. I will smile, turning my head to the side, drawing your gaze to my neck, knowing your eyes will not wander lower. But your soul, your being, your heart and mind will wander lower, wander higher, deeper, longer, closer. Fireworks exploding in a blaze of reds, blues, greens, blackest blacks and whitest whites. A series of soul-searing bangs, starting at my core, my deepest insides, filling me up till it seduces my brain. A crescendo, a roaring waterfall, a symphony, an infinite ripple. While my face will look straight, nodding at the others, the periphery inconsequential, never being distracted from my purpose, to receive my present. For this moment, this here, this now, this present is my wondrous past and wonderful future. Then, sated for a spell, I will leave to return once more. Will it be a year, I wonder? Or will my wandering follow my heart, the path that always lies in your wake? Okay, so that's the first one. Hi, Mandy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I just mute the, I was clapping. I don't know if you saw me.
Okay.
I just muted because of the dogs, so there's no interference.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Okay, so and then maybe I'll read one or two more. So I normally read what I probably feel are the two most evocative poems that I have, and they're about a topic very close to my heart. So this one is called Fear Not. Fear not the snarl of the lip that foretells the rage that rises without warning, without reason. Fear not the clenching of the fist that rains blows on your body, a body already battered and bruised. Fear not the boot that endlessly kicks at your cowering, fragile frame, a frame that has withstood and will withstand. Fear not the curses that reduce you to a shell of emptiness, of nothingness, words that stamp out your identity, your humanity. Fear your need to hide the scars and cover the bruises. Fear your remarkable ability to pretend all is well. Fear your eagerness to forgive and forget. Fear your strength to stem the tears. Fear your hope that tomorrow will be different, tomorrow will be better. Fear your reluctance to seek help. Fear your patience, your tolerance, your acceptance. Fear your forbearance. It empowers the coward, the weak, the not man. Celebrate your strength. Overcome your fear. Rejoice in your community. You are an individual, but you are not alone. You are not alone.
Raashida, that was incredibly powerful. Wow.
Yeah, like I say, I try and read those always because I feel that, I guess because it's something that's very close to my heart. Yeah, and then I normally read this one with it. It's much shorter, so indulge me. This one is called Hear Me, My Son. And I always read it with that because I hate to think that anybody reading that, hearing that poem, the first one, might think that I'm blaming the female for, for her situation. I'm really not. I'm actually hoping that they will stand up and, find their power within themselves. But anyway, I'm not going to explain too much. So this one is called Hear Me, My Son. Yours is not a hand unless it holds to guide, not strike. Yours is not an eye unless it looks with kindness, not anger. Yours is not a leg unless it walks with purity of intention, not to kick. Yours is not a tongue unless it speaks of love, not abuse. Yours is not a lip unless it smiles with tenderness, not disgust. Yours is not a finger unless it points within, not accusingly. Yours is not a heart unless it beats to uplift and nurture, not to instill terror. Hear me, my son. You are not a man unless you live your humanity. Okay. So while you unmute me, I'm going to... Sorry?
You read them so beautifully as well. You can feel the heart and the emotion and the passion that's gone into writing, and you can hear how passionate you are about the subject of abuse. It's definitely there. It comes across beautifully in your reading, and I suppose in your writing by default.
Yes, I hope so. I hope so. Okay, I'm going to give me 1 second. I'm going to quickly grab one of my novels or my short stories, whatever's there, and maybe you can look at the questions if there are any.
Yes. No, there's only comments. If there are any questions or anything, please pop them in the chat box. It is open. Nice carpets. I'll take the big one. Be fabulous in my house.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back. Nice carpets. I fancy the big one.
Oh, thank you. So this is my short stories that was launched earlier this year. I think February or March, just before lockdown. And yeah, I haven't had a chance to launch it yet. But if I get a discussant, I would be thrilled to launch this one via Zoom. Because the truth of the matter is, I found, I could be wrong, but I found that I only really get books sold at events. Otherwise, it's very hard. Occasional one will go here or there, but generally it's only at events. So that's my short stories. And then this is, of course, my novel, Miracraft, which I think you've read, or you've read Fragrance. I can't remember. Okay, so I don't know if there's any particular thing you want me to read.
No, just read whatever part you'd love to read.
Okay. I'm trying to find, I have put a few things down, but, I put a few, but of course, when you're looking for something.
No, it's always hard. You never find it when you're looking for it.
Okay, but I'll read from here. Okay. Here we go. So this book is about the breakdown of a marriage. The characters are Azra and her husband is Farid, and this is at a point where she's realizing that it's at a point where she's trying for a reconciliation, or she thinks there's a chance at a reconciliation. Azra took out the notebook from her bag. She handed it to Farid. He immediately realized what it was. Did she draw you too? He turned to the first page and was taken aback at the likeness that stared back at him. Mehnaz has drawn you perfectly. He held the notebook up a few centimeters from his face and looked at the visage that looked back at him. He then moved it to an arm's length away and marveled at his dead daughter's artistic skill. She was so talented and noticed every detail. Look how well she's captured you. The tilt of your head, the depth in your eyes, your lips, the way they turn up at the corners when... His words faded. Like in a previous lifetime, Azra completed his sentence. When I look at you, or rather, the way I used to look at you. She wanted us to know how each of us would be remembered by her. That's what she said to Yana. Farid shut his eyes tight for a moment, trying to quell the vice-like grip on his heart when he missed Mehnaz so completely. The pain was mirrored by Azra. She was still not able to use Mehnaz's name. She drew Yana the way she looks when she concentrates. She drew your expression when you take pictures. And me, the way I look at you. Farid could see it now, recognized it immediately, and realized with a bittersweet pang that he missed the way she used to look at him. Azra took the notebook back and fingered the outline of the drawing, her fingers following the path her husband's had just a moment ago. I love you with my whole self. All of me love all of you. I can carry on, or do you want to ask
carry
a question?
on. I was loving that. Carry on.
Okay.
Nobody's complaining. There's nothing in the box that says, stop,
good,
stop.
I loved you with my whole self. All of me loved all of you. His hand covered hers and stopped its movement. I'm sorry, Az. I truly, truly am. If I could turn back the clock and do things over. I know. Azra turned the page and angled it towards him. She pointed with a delicate finger tapering to the short, shaped nails that never had any color on them. Read it. Silently, he read. Stop smoking today. Start walking again, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Eat 3 small meals a day. Read Salah every day. Set a date for going back to work. Make that date soon. When he was done, he closed the book but said nothing. Azra broke the silence. I made the list on Saturday. She took a deep breath and slowly extending the pauses between sentences. I'm tired, Farid. I'm tired of being in pain and making everyone miserable. It was obvious from the measured way she spoke that she had practiced and planned what she would say. Can we try? What? Farid could hear his heart pounding in his chest. Let's start again. I can't promise I'm going to be able to forgive and forget, but I am going to try. She took out a pen from her handbag and added another point under the others. Learn to forgive, Farid. Man, she choked on the word, then
You've just lost sound. Raashida? Raashida?
something about yes.
You muted yourself. Start again.
How did I do that?
I don't know. You must have touched something by mistake. Just start back at the beginning of that sentence again because we didn't hear anything.
Oh, okay. Mehnaz, she choked on the word, then started again, softer but stronger. Our baby would have wanted this. I want to do this for her and for us. 3 days before my baby passed away, she made me promise that I would look after you. She was worried about you more than any of us. She said she knew Zayana would always have Munira. She said something about me getting it together quicker than you, that if I concentrated on the family and helping you, I would recover sooner. Can you believe? She knew us so well, better than I ever knew. I took her for granted. Farid said nothing. He did not move, barely breathed. Farid? The frown that seemed to permanently crease her brow these days etched deeper as she stared at him. Say something. Aren't you happy? Isn't this what you wanted? His silence and clouded expression said it all. You don't want to? It started as a question, but ended as a statement. She picked up her notebook and stood up. She clutched it against her chest with her arms, staring unseeingly at him, and then hurriedly moved her head and view towards the sea, her feet almost dragging her towards the rail. Azra, I don't know what to say. I didn't expect this. Not now. I thought after that night, you were so angry. You hated me so much. I thought we were over forever. Azra laughed, a cynical, spiteful laugh. Farid recoiled, steeling himself against what was surely to come next. My, oh my, that was your cue, was it? We were married. We are married, for God's sake. For 20 years we've known each other. The 18 years we have been married. We loved and lived together. We were happy. And just like that, she clicked the fingers of her right hand. You forgot. She tore out the page of resolutions, ripped it to shreds, and threw little pieces over the rail into the water. He watched them float away, being lifted by the breeze, dancing momentarily before flitting down to the water to be swallowed up by the vastness, gone, disappeared, as though they never existed at all, like the life they shared before, gone forever.
Raashida, you read beautifully.
How's that?
You read absolutely. You can come read me bedtime stories, okay? Because you read
anymore. Sorry.
You read beautifully. You can come read me bedtime stories anytime. It's so nice just sitting here listening.
Oh, I'd love to. You know, I've actually been thinking that I should investigate doing, reading for the blind, those tapes that they make for the blind, because I love reading actually, and I love reading aloud. It's something that I miss now that my kids are bigger. So yes, I can come over anytime and read to you, no problem.
What have you write audio books for your books?
Okay, do you want to read some more, or are there any questions, or what are we doing?
Kerry says, I agree. Do you read any books for Audible or the tapes? It's so soothing to listen to you. Maybe you should really.
No, that's.
Should really look at audiobooks.
I should investigate it actually. No, I don't have audiobooks yet, but that's something I can investigate. And yes, why not? I mean, I could read them.
Absolutely.
I'd love to read them.
You could absolutely read them. There's nothing wrong. It's very nice listening to you. Absolutely. Okay, will you read us one short story, and then I think we need to.
Thank you. Okay, cool. Now, the hard one. What short story can I read to you? It's always difficult to choose. I mean, probably I could read.
The cover is beautiful.
Yes, thank you. I could read Your Voice, My Strength, or Lightness After Dark, but I think that's too long. I don't think we want to be here too long. Let me read The Bridge. 8 pages. And,
you don't have to read the whole thing, just read a bit.
Okay. Okay, then let me read Your Voice, My Strength, the title story. That won the Minara Aziz Hassan Short Story Award in 2017. Okay. Your Voice, My Strength. Amina painstakingly applied the makeup to shield the bruise on her left cheek. Fortunately, there was no cut and not much swelling. It still hurt like hell, though. Luqman, her husband of 14 years, never left marks on her face that could not be hidden. She had become expert at applying makeup. It was so different from when she was younger, when she hardly ever wore any. He was careful with her face, but that still left him her whole body since she was covered head to foot. She always wore an abaya, a traditional flowing garment that covered her entirely. All anyone saw of her was a face. She always looked away from the mirror when she showered or dressed. While applying salve or balms, the soft creased lids almost closed over the eyes that were glassy nowadays. There was not an inch of her fragile frame that Luqman had left unmarked over the last 9 years. 9 used to be my lucky number. Maybe it'll stop before 10. At her very core, though, she felt it would stop only with her death. She wrapped her headscarf carefully, ensuring all loose tendrils were tucked in and no makeup smudged off. Amina's narrow feet in flat pumps, could not be seen and barely made a sound. The unadorned, frayed hem of her abaya was long enough to sweep the ground, so it looked like she floated to the kitchen. She read a Yasin, which she had memorized in madrasa years earlier, as she unpacked the washing machine, defrosted the meat, and mindlessly passed the morning with her daily routine of endless chores. Luqman never showed interest in Amina's children because he did not like girls. The only thing Luqman despised more than their female children was Amina's inability to produce a son. His cruelty had turned to abuse after Bilqis, their second daughter, had been born. The beatings had stopped when she had fallen pregnant a third time. But when this pregnancy produced another girl, they started up immediately, intensifying in ferocity and frequency. The litany of complaints against Amina grew. Zainab, her youngest, a gentle soul with an ever-ready smile, had not started speaking. She was almost 5 now, so even the gurgling and childish grunts had stopped. The child was silent. When you marry an uneducated girl, this is what happens. Luqman's words echoed in Amina's ears. You get idiot children. Zainab was playing with her toys, entertaining herself. Amina chatted to her non-stop. It was a two-way conversation. Amina asking and answering questions for both of them, changing her lilt as she spoke for her daughter. Come, baby, let's go fetch Fatima and Billy. But, Mom, I'm still playing. Okay, Zaini, finish up. We can leave in 5 minutes. Zainab heard but did not respond or show any indication that she understood. Amina reached for her hand. How about a snack? She pointed towards the kitchen counter where she had laid out sliced apples in a plastic plate, cookies in a little bowl, and nuts in another. She knew the girl would go for the nuts, but the literature suggested giving the child choices in the hope that this would encourage her to talk. The conclusions of the 3 assessments concurred. There is no physiological reason for Zainab not to speak. Her hearing is excellent too. Speech and play therapies were recommended, but Luqman had refused. What would people say? Any attempts at persuading him otherwise led to confrontations, and other reasons to lash his frustrations out on her. Amina looked heavenward, praying for a change of Luqman's heart. I'm not wasting money on white people's nonsense, was his feeble excuse, and then he just laid down the law. No therapy. The previous night, Amina should have left it at that, but she was so vested in trying to convince him that she missed the telltale sign of the hand closing into a fist. Shut up, he shouted and smacked her phone into her mouth. She tasted iron and felt dizzy. He slapped her again and aggressively pushed her onto the bed. He straddled her. You want more? His right arm was raised to strike again. Amina shook her head and kept silent. Just shut up about this shit if you know what's good for you. Another stinging blow ended the conversation, and gratefully the beating too. Now that Luqman had refused again, she had no choice but to take Zainab to therapy in secret. It would be difficult, but she would make a plan. Over the years, she had tried everything to break into her daughter's cocooned world and draw her out, to help her become a butterfly. No, not a butterfly, a bird, a singing nightingale. Reading and other forms of stimulation that she could do herself were exhausted. Every supplication to Allah, khatams and duas, manats, blowing furtively recited prayers on water for Zainab to drink, reading a verse from the Quran as she gently placed her hand on Zainab's throat and Zainab's hand on hers. Ta'weezes from Maulanas and an endless array of dietary changes recommended by the Hakim. Everything she could think of had all been done. She never became despondent or dejected, though. She persevered, for he would grant her prayers. Zainab would talk. Of that, Amina was convinced. She was accepting of his will and plan, and practiced patient, nurturing love with Zainab as she waited for his miracle. I can continue, but I'm thinking time.
I want to know how it ends.
I can go. Okay, let me read faster. Will that help? I think you'll get the story. At 1:30, she and Zainab left to fetch Amina's older girls from school. The heat in the car was stifling. She pulled off a headscarf and reveled in the feeling of the cool air-conditioned breeze against her neck. Hey, Zaini, what if your father were to see me now? Oh, Mom, he would be so mad. Her voice rose and squeaked when she spoke for the silent child. Zainab's attention was focused on the school entrance. You want to join your sisters, her baby? Come to school like a big girl? Like a big girl? Yes. Oh, Mom, can I please? Soon, baby. Next year, you will start grade R. Amina played with the child's soft brown locks. You just want to start talking for you. You just have to start talking for yourself. But then you'll be all alone at home, Mom. How can I leave you? Schnookums, you have to start school next year. Don't worry about me. When you're back every day, you can tell me all about it. Zainab's expression changed and she smiled broadly, showing her pearly teeth as she bounced up and down in her booster seat. Sure enough, her sisters were racing to the car. Each hugged Zainab and showered her with kisses. The girls then softly hugged their mother, having learned from a young age not to squeeze too hard, never knowing where a fresh bruise or fractured bone lay behind the layers of dark fabric. At home, the older girls disappeared into the bedrooms while Amina readied lunch. She kept her running commentary with Zainab. Can't wait for you girls to be big enough to help me. Then I won't have to be in the kitchen all day. You love it, Mom. Admit it. You love cooking and baking for us. Ha ha, you're right, Schnookums. You know me too well. Clever girl. After dropping the older girls at madrasa, Amina took Zainab for her first session of therapy. Please, Allah, please don't let it be too late for Zainab. Lisa Kumalo, the speech therapist, was professional and knowledgeable. She, in turn, was impressed with Amina's research and detailed record of Zainab's history. She spoke kindly. Okay, I'll show you where you can observe us without being seen or heard. Amina hugged Zainab. Mum will be right outside, Schnookums. Lisa and you are going to have a great time. For the next 50 minutes, Amina sat behind a one-way mirror in the adjoining room, watching and praying. She prayed for a word, a sound, but there was nothing. Zainab ignored Lisa as though she did not exist. She played with the toys laid out, but did not engage with the therapist. When the session ended, Lisa was brief. It's the first session, it's too early to tell. Let's not rush things or jump to any conclusions. Is there anything I should be doing for her or with her? I think you're doing everything right. Be patient. Amina paid and glanced at her watch. There was just enough time to fetch the girls from madrasa, cook and get the girls bathed and started with homework before Luqman came home. As she pulled her car into the yard, however, her heart skipped a beat. His car was in the driveway. She wondered how long he had been home. Usually she would have left only 30 minutes before the end of madrasa, but not today. Daddy's home. Her usual lilting cadence was replaced by a high-pitched screech. The older girls rushed in, but Zainab ran to her mother and clung to her legs, wanting to be picked up. But you're too heavy for me now. Amina hoisted the child and balanced her on her hip anyway. Zainab's fair, bare legs looked even whiter against Amina's black abaya. Assalamu alaikum, Amina greeted walking into the house. This was her habit whenever she walked in. Even if the house was empty, she called the greeting for the angels in the house. Why is Luqman home early, today of all days? Luqman summoned her to their bedroom. Where were you? The words were spat out, the voice guttural. Madrasa. I went earlier. I had to help Mu'allima. Liar, you went into town. Amina's mouth dropped open. How does he know? Her stomach tightened. She could hear her heart thudding in her chest. Zainab clung tighter, laying her body flat against Amina's as though she wanted their bodies to merge. Bitch, cheat on me and lie on top of it? Who is he? Luqman shouted and covered the distance between them menacingly. Amina instinctively put up her arm and begged, Wait, please, Luqman, let me just take Zainab downstairs. Luqman ignored Amina's plea and grabbed her arm, throwing her onto the bed. I'll show you. Dare lie to me? He balled his hand into a fist and raised his arm above his head. A cruel snarl darkened his stony features as his nostrils flared.
Raashida, we're running out of time. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's going to come log out at 7 o'clock, and I wanted to say how fabulous that was.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. If anybody
wants to know how it ends, I suggest we buy the book.
Please, I'm so thrilled. I'm so proud of this little book of stories. I mean, there's only about 14 or 15 stories, and it's not only focused on Muslim people. That just happens to be the title one. In fact, one of the stories, one of my favorites, is called The Bridge. It's written from the perspective of a teenage African boy, and I think I've nailed it, even if I do say so myself. So I really would encourage people to pick this up. It's available on Amazon or from me. You can get my details from Mandy.
I'll share your details afterwards. Fabulous. This has been really an absolute treat. Thank you so much. Comments. Love the Schnookums. Absolutely fabulous. Incredible. I wish teens could have this in life skills. I agree with you. It should be a life skills book. Raashida, it's been awesome chatting to you. I've absolutely loved it. You read beautifully. Your books sound amazing.
Thank you.
The short stories and the poetry really sounds fabulous. And we wish you everything of the best. I hope it goes from strength to strength. And I will share your details with everybody on the group now. And hopefully, you'll hear from people. And I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much for having me, Mandy. I really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Catch you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye-bye.